Are we live, John? I think we're live.
Did it already go live? Just like that?
That's a running joke for us. Good morning, everybody, to another Wake Up and Deliver episode 21. As always, you have me, Matthew Zarzitsky, with, I think he's below me, John.
Yes.
You're below me? Is that what it is?
I am, at least from my perspective. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm hoping online as well. It shows the same way because we're trying something new every time to make it a little bit more entertaining for everybody. And as always, not always everything goes correctly. Oh, and looks right. Anyways, let's get started with some brain food coffee for the mind. This one is different than our usual ones. So I'm gonna bring the mic up so it's for dramatic effect. Your body reflects what you eat. Your mind reflects what you consume. For a healthy body, choose whole foods. For a sharp mind, choose lasting knowledge. What's lasting knowledge? It's the wisdom that endures, timeless principles, foundational ideas, insights that remain relevant for years, not hours. Before diving into the news or scrolling through feeds, ask, will this still matter next year? If not, it's probably mental junk food. The sugar high will leave you craving even more. Avoid mental junk food. Feed your mind substance. Your future self will thank you.
Jesus, it's Monday, right? Like, that is deep. Like, oh boy. Yeah. I agree. You are what you eat. You are what you read. You're the people that you surround yourself with, kind of thinking. So, I agree, unless I totally missed the gist of that essay.
My camera got docked. No, it was, I guess I am more talking about how, knowledge helps your brain expand. So if you're just constantly, and we've talked about this a lot, when you're constantly just feeding yourself junk knowledge, you're going to have junk output. So the more quality knowledge we consume, the better you are, right? So on that note...
But not just the quality, though, the diversity, right? Because you got to be careful that you're not, like, you can consume a lot of stuff, but if you want to live in an echo chamber and not challenge yourself or not hear other perspectives or, different ways of doing things, you're not necessarily going to get any of this, the type of results or the growth or whatever that it could be. So I think that's important too, is to really make sure that you're also getting diversity, right, in terms of your diet, both physically and mentally,
which we bring on Wake Up and Deliver.
We do, yeah. That's our value proposition. is that
the diversity of all the different things that you can learn. Lots of different things going on in the news. Different, I guess, spectrums of the supply chain. You had some few good ideas when we were chatting before in the pre-live studio. And by the way, for anybody that wants to join, we do have a link in the comments section that you can come join us in the studio. You will come on camera. However, you can turn off your camera and just talk. You don't have to show yourself. We're trying to be interactive like we always have been, but no obligation at all.
And I actually totally encourage someone to try, because I want to see if Matt can on the fly deal with like a new variable of adding a third person to this setup and see what happens.
That is not a nice thing to do on a Monday morning, John.
It is. I want to see, like, to your point, we're testing, right? I think that's one of the cool things is that, both you and I have had a lot of success in our career from just being very iterative, like trying it out, seeing what happens, see that result, being like, oh, damn, that wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then, kind of tweaking and going forward. So I think it's kind of cool to be able to show that experience live and, really take in the fact that, like, yeah, maybe it's going to be bumpy, messy, even when we repost these things. We don't like fix things and we don't edit things out, right? Like, we posted one a couple of weeks ago where you kept dropping off because LinkedIn was being weird. And literally you'll just hear me being like, oh, Matt's gone again.
Matt's
like,
gone.
You know what I mean?
And that's the fun of it. Actually, we do have a lot of fun doing this, and that's the most important, part. The only thing I don't like about the video setup, just before we get into it, is I don't know who's there. So I'm assuming again the regulars have joined us, and I see Amrit has already said good morning to us. So thank you. And it's it's nice knowing that I think they're all there, and I in the back of my mind. On the audio, it shows you everybody who's there, which is kind of nice too. But we'll go
Yeah,
with it.
that's true. The StreamYard thing into LinkedIn Live is a bit of a challenge that way. So, we fly a little bit more blind.
Yeah. So let's get started. What you had some ideas? What would you want to talk about this morning, John? I'm gonna go with your idea because mine were
Well, first let's talk about the video since I made a post about it. Oh, and we just lost. Look, see? Did you see what happened, guys, on the live stream? Like Matt dropping his camera as he's trying to tweak it because it's bothering him. Um, okay, so let's talk about the video I posted this morning because you were, oddly enough, you messaged me after you saw it and you're like, I was gonna do that.
yeah.
And what I thought was funny about that video is I thought it was wild. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, how is this kid like randomly picking up these immediate differences between these two photos?
Yeah.
And like right away, I was just shocked by like the amount of people in the comments that are just like, oh, this is just what you do. This is just what you do. And I think my favorite response was, I've never gone from being so amazed to so unimpressed so quickly.
So quickly.
And the funny thing is, I couldn't even do it. Like people were trying to explain what to do, like the mental trick of like this cross-eyed looking or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm not built for it, or I just still wasn't getting it. But it was funny to me how many people were getting it. And it's interesting, and I guess what I thought was really interesting is how much like the internet and how much like sort of being able to connect with anyone at any given time dramatically changes things. Because I can most certainly tell you that in my in-person interactions growing up, I have never been around one person with a friend and we came across one of these images and they're like, dude, that's so easy. This is all you do. Like just never came up. Like to me, this was so new and novel, but because these days you're connected to, millions and billions of people, the answers can come out, or these points of view can come out very quickly.
Yeah, I find that the internet kind of takes away the oddness of things. Like even in logistics and supply chain, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's just easy. It's just we do this all the time." And like you and I have gone under the hood of many different companies. We go, "You guys are faking it till you making it, right? Or you're just saying it to be impressive, and it's really not. It isn't easy. It isn't that straightforward. And what you're doing, you're getting the right end result." You're not doing the right methodology to get there, and it only works to a certain degree, and then your margin of error is fundamentally increased because you did it once, you got it right. Doesn't make it 100% the right way of doing it, right? And I've noticed that often as well. Like a lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's easy owning a trucking company." Like, to the post that I did over the weekend about the truck months ago that went over the side, and the lady, a lot of people were like, "Oh, why didn't she turn this way? Why didn't she do that? Why didn't she hit the brake?" It's very easy after the fact to be very opinionated on what you could have done and how you could have survived that moment, and I think it's relevant to understand that when people say it's easy how well they do things, it's not always that easy. That is as great as it seems.
For sure. Well, what about even linking that post? Because there's a couple of things I'll add in after some stuff when I was with my last company talking about accidents or how how drivers react. But to your point about people immediately being like, oh, you should just do this, you should just do that. Like I would have, you got to be paying attention in this. You had sent me that video of the Tesla, right? And if you're going to use this, there'll be foreshadowing, yes, if you are going to use it. But like how quickly the Tesla responded
I was going to use that
to that person being pushed into the road or falling into the road and immediately reacted. Like to your point, I don't know if I could have done it. You felt you couldn't have reacted that quickly to that situation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the technology, but then at the same time too. So here's a video of a Tesla essentially saving someone's life by how quickly it reacted. And on the flip side, there's starting to be a mounting investigation against Tesla for the fact that they've actually caused a couple of deaths with the self-driving car. Well, they say caused, but I mean, it hasn't reacted fast enough. And it's funny to see how good it can be in one situation, right? Where the visibility was good, the cameras were working, whatever. But because of the technology and the way that they've approached the problem, like they don't use like LiDAR and they don't use some of this other tech that can cut through some of the visual noise, they're actually having challenges on the flip side where, there's sunspots, low visibility, high fog or something where the cameras can't pick it up as quickly.
So the question becomes, what's the margin of error that's acceptable? And is it better or greater than the human error, right? And as we get into the trucking aspect and the robots and facilities and all this kind of stuff, what's the margin of error that's acceptable? If it's below the human standard of same amount of accidents or deaths per capita, by definition, it's safer. But do we have a stronger, stringent mechanism on the artificial because it's artificial?
Well,
Can we think of a
I think
robot just as easily as we could a person?
yeah, that's actually a cool idea because I think it brings up a really let's call it dangerous concept, especially with, the propagation of AI. You and I were talking about this too before we started about, Microsoft building more agents into Copilot and how more, pretty much every tech platform that you see is AI. Um, but there's a really the Tesla thing is a really interesting um, metaphor, I think, for how people view technology is that on any given day, no one would expect humans to not have accidents, right, while driving a car. Think, like, whether they're serious or not, like, you kind of inherently just know that if a person is driving the car, there's a likelihood that they can have an accident, or there's a certain degree or acceptability in terms of an accident. But when it comes to our systems, because it's like, well, because we could turn it into an app, because we could turn it into, an interface,
Yeah.
all of a sudden that expectation of error essentially drops to zero.
Yeah.
Like it should be like, well, because you could code it,
It should be
and
invaluable.
because you
It should
could
be
build an
perfect.
app, it should be perfect.
Yeah.
And that inherently brings up so much danger, especially in logistics and supply chain where we're working, because I know a few weeks ago you saw this. I wrote about it in my newsletter and about all the AI stuff. But for anyone out there that thinks that all of these little companies are building their own AI models, absolutely not happening.
Yeah.
The cost, the complexity, the requirements that it takes, not even close. All of these little startups that you see popping up with their apps, they most certainly are not building their own
They're using
actual back end.
they're using a whole bunch of different ones in the back.
They're using all kinds of different things. At best, they've come up with their own machine learning kind of approach. But even then, they're still using someone else's core models.
Yeah.
So what starts happening though, when all of your business decisions went into the bot and people's expectation are the answers are just good? Like, funny enough, even over the weekend, I was using a couple of them because you and I do it. Like, I'll have a couple of different ones going for different types of research or building out information or trying to find different things for the amount of content that we write about. And I literally, even now and we get all the advanced ones, we get the most advanced versions. I found it like it spewed out an error the other day that I only caught because I had the two of them going back and forth.
Yeah.
And one of them was saying it and one of them was not. And I was like, well, what's happening here? And sure enough, one of them was dead wrong. It just
You gotta use that.
grabbed it out of nowhere.
You gotta use that critical thinking. It's the same thing as when you're challenging your boss and or talking to anybody. You always gotta have that critical thought and not just accept what you're being fed. Like, think about it. Does it make sense? And don't just accept the answer for whatever it is, right? And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people are just going, well, ChatGPT gave me the answer, or this was the way it was done. But it doesn't make it the right answer. On that though, we had Dustin. Everybody wish us good morning. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Kat, for wishing us good morning. Dustin kind of came in and said they will settle the cases because they don't want to disclose the self-driving algorithm, which is a great point. And then private labeling ChatGPT was his other comment to that.
Yeah, I agree with Dustin 100%. Like, there's so much, like, people are like, oh yeah, come spend money with us for X amount a month or a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And all it's doing is pushing stuff into G.
Yeah.
All it's doing essentially is pushing stuff into G. And, that becomes very inherently dangerous too, because one, if that means that if you start building your business around some of these smaller apps or these little guys that claim that they're using all kinds of AI to help you in your business, if OpenAI decides to change something with their infrastructure or they decide to change something with how something works, you're immediately impacted and these people won't know what to tell you, right? And then the other thing is that it also means that you're not really getting a level of proprietary expertise or execution that you might have thought you were. You're just getting a wrapper that a lot of other people can do.
Or like we're noticing too, is a lot of junk responses are starting to occur as more junk information is getting fed into it. Where,
right?
What was the recent statistic? Like 60% of a lot of the internet stuff that we're seeing now is not even written by people, it's by bots and AI. So it's perpetuating its own stuff that it's posting and going, oh, this is the right thing. So now we're becoming less and less individual. And that statistic I did make up, so don't quote me on that one, but it is a high number. And then it kind of goes into that algorithm and it keeps feeding it out. So if you're basing your supply chain, your warehousing, and it goes out, you create this process and go, I don't know what the SOP is for warehousing. Let's create one. And you use an AI algorithm to pull it. It's pulling the information, and it could be not pulling from the right source that you want to build it. And that goes back to that critical thinking of using that experience and those SOPs that are industry standards. And that's why I think in the future, education will become more important of very specific niches to be an individual expert on something to be able to have that, because that's going to be very proprietary content that all these AI algorithm wants. I had a great chat with Bill over the weekend, and Bill was talking about, how you have the badge on your LinkedIn, right? The expert in logistics or whatever.
No, I I let it drop off because I refused to continue to like put into that program because it was so Mickey Mouse. Everyone can get it. It's like, as long as you are contributing and you got a few likes, like LinkedIn's here dishing out these top voices. I was like, no, I'm not participating in this
Good.
anymore.
I was going to say, on that top voices, you're basically teaching the algorithm on them building the expertise on what they think is valid. So it's not what is the actual answer, it's which one has the most likes. So they're assuming what has the most likes is the right answer because people are agreeing it, not what's the most popular vote, right? And it becomes
100%.
it becomes like the prom king and prom queen of likes on this, and they're building these algorithms around that and be like, hey, the logistics of this answer is X based off of these experts liking this, not because they like the individual or not because they like the content, not because they read it, they just liking it, and that becomes the standard. That's my biggest worry as we expand into that AI aspect of it. And I know a lot of people are hesitant. Again, my biggest thing is it's a tool. It doesn't replace.
Yeah. It's got to be a tool. Like I was telling you too before we started, like I'm doing a bunch of work on custom workflows for someone I'm working with, and looking at different invoices and processing them. And it's insane how different they are. Like, the core concept for every one of them is the same, like the exact same goal with the exact same kind of approach, in terms of like what you want to do. And the amount of transformation or iteration or like how you make it work for this one versus that one versus this is really different. And, that's a very simple data set. So do I think that, like, for example, the bots could figure it out? Sure. Like I think it could, but it's really interesting to see how do you build the flexibility for the fact that, in some situations you've got 60 columns of data. No word of a lie, in some of the other ones, you've got 250 columns of data, all for the same kinds of stuff. And each one is approaching it differently. And the danger of just assuming that the bot's going to know how to figure it out and that whatever answer it gives could lead you to really make some bad business decisions if you're not able to get in there and really like peel back the layers of the onion. And I think that that's the most devastating thing, because I saw a post over the weekend that made me laugh. And the guy said, I fixed computers for my parents.
Yeah.
And now I'm fixing computers for my kids. And his question was, are we the only generation that actually understands how things work?
Interesting.
And I thought that was interesting.
That's
because
interesting.
my kids have no interest in understanding the details. They just want to be able to smash the screen and make it work, so to speak. And it is interesting because what happens if you start leaning on bots to make all of the decisions for your business? You're leaning them on for your forecasting. You're leaning on them for your route optimization. You're leaning on them for your carrier matching. You're leaning on them for your vetting, blah, 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 whatever it could be. But because you don't understand how it's actually working or everything
You don't know
that
if it's
it's
right or
doing,
wrong.
you don't know if it's right
Yeah.
or wrong. So it's like, are you really doing the best for your business? And how much better, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, but how much better can someone be with Excel or Google Sheets if they really know what they're doing and they know what to check?
That is an interesting. I had a very similar conversation because we had a family member down, and they're very much the older generation, and they're very much knowledgeable on the mechanics, how to fix things. And I was telling my son, who was 12, like, you should really focus on how to fix these things and learn from them, because this is a dying art. Like, the mechanicalness of fixing things is dying, and a lot of the younger generation don't want to get into it as much as even less our generation, more so the older generation. I'm like, you're gonna make way more money being a mechanic of reefer units, of truck engines, of you'll have the tools and the diagnostics to be able to do it, but being the product expert of it, where you're the one that creates the videos at how to fix this, will be the one that is going to excel into the future, because that's going to be the basis of understanding these things. You can have these tools to help, AI can run the sensors and tell you what's wrong. Being able to visually understand and get in there and fix it, I think that's going to be, like to your point too, is the people who are fixing those nicky-nacky things, whether it's on Excel, whether in the back end, even on your point too, is how to make sure the data that you're inputting into your system is clean. I know it's me in my system. I put in some duplicates in there, and it bothers the crap out of me because my data's not clean. And then you have duplicates, and you splice, like how often do I go to Quebec City? And if I put Quebec City in there 3 times, it's going to dilute my data. It's going to think I don't go there as often as I am. Right.
Mhm.
And that data cleanliness in a lot of companies is just not there, because people are like, whatever, it's not a big deal. I'll just enter it twice. I'll have 3 different Walmart stores in my system because I entered
Yeah,
it.
one's got a space, one's got a number, the other one was short formed.
Exactly.
Like,
But that dilutes your data to a point where it's not able to have the system that we're talking about able to read it correctly and go, hey, you are going here more often. We should use this strategy. It goes, hey, you're going to 3 different locations.
yeah, for sure. Well, let's like to make it really real and sticky for people to understand, like, oh, well, why does that matter or how much? Like, you know, the level that you understand your data and how you structure it is important, because it quickly allows you to segment and understand what's going on, but it also helps you find mistakes. Like that RFP that you had a little while ago, right? And we were able to take it from the way that you looked at the lanes and the way that you wanted to code it. You gave them, like, let's call it priorities, just so people can kind of understand or whatever. And then, we kind of took that, we put it in the mapping software, we made it visual, we were able to apply different filters to it, but it quickly allowed you to either see, hey, something is either not right or something is wrong, or something is a real outlier, and these things aren't good. Being able to have that fluidity in your information and your system is what really takes people from like okay to good and good to great.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, really being able to understand that. And even your expertise is something as simple as being like, okay, here are my lanes, here's this RFP, this is this customers and what they do. I'm going to add these, let's call it 5 dimensions. I'm going to add these columns for everyone understanding, but those are all very specific, and they have reasons why you're adding that to the data, so that when you make decisions,
Yeah.
your customer, like when you win, the customers are going to be better positioned because you knew exactly what you were saying. Everything is going to be cleaner because you're going to be able to then follow that activity in a better way than probably some other carriers and brokers and stuff like that. And it just makes everything easier. But you have to have a pretty deep understanding of what you're doing to get that in place. And if it's not your forte, and yours it is and stuff like that, but I think we probably both work with clients that they focus on other areas of their business that have helped them do very well.
Yep.
It's like, there's no like what I don't understand is sometimes, like, there's so much resistance to bringing people in. It's like, bring in the people that understand that those 5 more dimensions are going to make a huge impact to your business, because a year from now you're going to be way better off.
And not only that, sometimes bringing in those additional people or different opinions gives you a different brainstorming activity that you weren't aware of, that you might be outside of your scope. And understanding that, and like that RFP is a great example, because as much as I understand it on Excel, and I was looking through, when we visualized that, I went, crap, I didn't understand in my mind that these were really connected. These nodes were really in the same geographical position. I can bundle these together as a single location, provide a greater value and context for my customer. And then we, to the outcome of that one was we did do pretty well in it because of our ability to kind of dissect that data. Because understanding that data, it is very fundamental in how you approach your customers and how you approach your presentation. Because it's not only about submitting that RFQ, it's about how you present it as well. Everybody just submits it, but how you present it and how you present yourself in front of that customer makes the world of the difference, I think. And having people to support you, whether it's on your team or consultants or even opinions in the industry, which I do often as well. I always reach out to a whole bunch of buddies I have in the brokerage or in the 3PLs and the 4PLs. How are they doing things? Helps you really hone in how you approach your customer to provide them a better solution that they were aware of, that you weren't even aware of, but connecting those dots makes it better. So wrapping it up to what you originally kind of talked about, being able to see that screen of those two different things and seeing the differences, not everybody is able to execute that on that unless you have a whole bunch of people in there together. And the more people you had probably sitting in that room trying to figure out where the difference is, the quicker the outcome. I don't think it would be as quick as that person on that video because they were damn quick.
She crushes it. Yeah, I
She
know she does very well.
rushes it. But to the point is, you'll be able to get to that point quicker of seeing those differences in specific in the data and the supply chain, and the tools like AI definitely help us get to that point, right?
Oh, for sure. And so one of my favorite quotes I'll just share for everybody. This was way back in the day when I was doing a big project on knowledge transfer for an organization. And what most people get really stuck on these days, because we are in the information age by a long stretch, is that people mistake having information for knowledge. And that is something that is just really a big distinction you have to make, because information is just data or data, however you you want to take it in, and it doesn't really mean anything in itself. Knowledge is being able to take that information and apply action to it and
Yep.
use it to do something. And you can record lots of stuff these days, but you got to record what matters, or at the very least, you have to make sure to understand what's going to allow you to take that action, because that's where the true knowledge is, and that's where working with different people, that's where developing your talent in your organization, whatever it could be, that's where you really start to see the separation in quality of operations, execution, customer experience, and everything that everyone chases.
Yeah, there's a social experiment. I think I think it was in Russia. They did in the 50s or 60s. It was called the werewolf and the villager experiment, where they took I think 10 people, and within those 10 people, there 8 of them were villagers and 2 were werewolves, and only the werewolves knew that they were werewolves, and they had to figure out, like, the winner of the game was whoever lived at the very end, and it always was 2 villagers. If there's 2 villagers in the end, the werewolves win, and they found that high number, vast majority, having a little bit of knowledge and using that knowledge will get you far ahead of people who don't have any knowledge. And that's
for sure.
And that's such a key component of knowing something, knowing how your competition operates, knowing how your customer does certain things will always be beneficial to you to get ahead in anything you do than not. And that's why you're stuck in, and I've always been a proponent of being stuck in your own bubble and not caring about what everybody else does will, I think, I know it will tank you, because you think you're doing something great, and you might be miles away from success at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, that's where people have always got to be focused and challenged. So what's going on for this week? Starting off the week, we're getting deeper into October. Everything is getting more tense.
We didn't talk about, we had the lineup about Halloween, and then we were going to talk about the spirit stores and the last mile deliveries. I guess we'll talk about that.
Let's get into it. Let's get in for 2 minutes, at least give people a teaser. Maybe we'll pick it back up.
All right. So the spirit stores, this is your forte. You posted about this about a week or two ago. I think it's becoming, it came up on news for me as well this week. Maybe you give some context to it. Spirit, from what I understood, is using Uber now to make last mile deliveries on instant deliveries of costumes. I thought that was kind of neat. I told you, and you went in John fashion, this is horrible. And I'm like, why? And then you said something very profound. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
See, now you're putting me on the spot, because I don't think it was that profound. But I was just like, honestly, I don't. To me, it's crazy how much people are chasing share. And it's like, I'm going to put my product on Uber for instant delivery, which inherently is going to be way more expensive for, versus anyone coming in. And Spirit on top of it is like offering a discount on your first order or something like that. And to me, I just, I'm just not sure how many customers are out there that are so slammed that they just can't make it out to a store, or they're so certain about what they want that they're just going to hit it on Uber. It just feels like a lost opportunity, because a store like Spirit, especially, that's pop-up, that's holiday, that's sort of transitional, you want more people in the store, because when people are in the store, that's when they're going to grab that 1, 2, 3 extra things. Those 3 extra things that they didn't really think about when they're online and they're making a very transactional purchase.
Yeah.
But to me, I just thought it didn't really. I don't see that customer who's like, oh, I'm so slammed I can't get to the store, but I'm so happy that I can get it then in an hour. It just doesn't make sense.
I'll tell you what, I've walked out of Spirit more times than I've bought something, just because it's just being the chaos inside there. Because it's such a like a pop-up store. It's never like a very casual like walking through. I don't know Saks Fifth Avenue. I don't know like you know what I mean. Like
Well,
it's
that's because there's no one in Saks, but that's like,
but to that point, you know what I mean. Like it's always chaos. There's always a huge lineup. The people who work in the tills, they're only seasonal. They're only there for like the month or two. They really there's no invested interest to be there because it's only a pop-up store. So that's why I thought it was a neat
Right.
idea where you take away a lot of that burden of someone like myself. I have no interest of going to that store, but I would buy it if it was delivered to me, and I'm willing to pay that extra $5 right on to put up with that chaos.
yeah, but like so you don't like the people and the quality of their service in the store, yet somehow you think that these transient disengaged people are going to be able to take web orders and go pick your product off the shelf, give it to the Uber driver that he, you know what I mean, and get all the right stuff.
Are you telling me the
I
Uber
don't know.
driver
To
doesn't
me,
pick it? People in the store?
honestly, so I don't think Uber honestly does pick a lot of stuff. It really depends. I know DoorDash with some of their marketplace stuff. Sometimes the driver picks and sometimes they don't. It really depends on the agreement they have with the merchant. But that would be honestly even worse. So now you're trying to if an Uber driver's picking it, that means that you're putting this guy up against the clock. He's got to race into the same store that you don't want to see in, and
Yep.
he's going to try to magically find this item like, you know, like a bullet through there,
It
just
saves
honing
me
in
as
on
a
it.
it saves me as a consumer. That's for sure.
Oh,
That's
there's no chance. I went to this takeout place last week, this taco joint by here, and I saw the DoorDash driver just crying inside as he was waiting, and you could just see him burning time as they were so slow. I couldn't even imagine the inefficiency of like if the Uber driver was actually picking your costume, and then honestly how comfortable I would be that they actually got it right.
well. That's why the I think the cashless store, not the cashless store, the app store, like the Amazon had the where you just kind of walk in, grab what you want, walk out, and there's no person behind the register would make sense in those pop-up stores. You have to like sign in, scan it, grab your stuff, and walk out. And you just I think that would be a far better system than the Uber, or have a preferred thing for like the Uber guys. You know, you're an Uber driver, scan, grab, walk out, and it automatically charges because it's already prepaid based off of the Uber. I think that would
Oh,
be a greater idea.
for sure. Actually, even for pop-ups, like, you know, the just walk out's one thing, but I mean, like, you know what Uniqlo has now at their self-checkout, which is like the uh RFID bins, like that's just what they need there. Like they just need to be able to toss stuff in there and then walk out right away with a quick
Yeah,
transaction.
but we are over the
We
time.
are 2 minutes over. Oof.
Oof, we're past the time.
Yeah.
On that note, you always have the final word, John. What are our final words of inspiration for the week? Second last week of October.
Ooh. Um,
You on the spot.
just, you know, go after, just go after it and keep pushing, right? Like, you know, if you get complacent right now, it's probably going to hurt you down the road. A few more weeks of pushing hard, and then everyone can probably breathe a little bit easier. Well, probably not until after the return season is done. So you got, you still got a little bit of time, but honestly, like, don't let up and don't cut corners, because every corner you cut is probably going to come back twice as bad in terms of how much it hurts after.
Great advice. As always, feel free. Anybody's able to join our I guess podcast morning show. Reach out to us. We're more than happy. If you have any suggestions of someone who would like to join us, more than happy to have them on here as well. Next week, we're still talking about it. I don't know where we're going to end up. We're supposed to have a regular monthly podcast with Jess, but we might change some things up. And that one was supposed to be Halloween themed. And as always, next Monday, please join us again on Wake Up and Deliver. On that note, goodbye, everybody.